I'm trying so hard to find a coin so I can do the opening.
You just do the bit. They're not even really going to be able to hear the coin.
Well, they're gonna hear the coin flip, so why don't you call it? Last time we did Oliver and Company, and now we're doing a No Country for Old Men. Welcome to Not Just Any Book Club. We don't know what's going on.
We have no rhyme or reason for how we pick these topics. We just do what we're interested in.
Yes. Hi. I am Justin from Not Just Any Book Club. Welcome to Book Ends, where we talk about movies and or other media that relate to the topic at hand. This time we did No Country for Old Men, the movie released in 2007 by the Coen brothers. Which was a really good movie. Pierce, the other co-host, what did you think?
I thought it was really good. There's a reason why this movie, makes it probably easily into anyone's top 100 films of all time. That's at least the lists.
Especially in the 21st century, at least there. No Country for Old Men was a movie released in 2007, and the reason why that year is kind of important is because this movie was very contentious, which was the best movie released in 2007. Because there was another movie, I don't know if you've ever heard of this movie, There Will Be Blood. Have you ever heard of it?
I have heard of this movie before. I've never seen it before. I don't think I've ever seen a movie from 2007.
He was born in 2008, guys. Give him some time.
Yep. Yeah.
But yeah, he hasn't seen it. After watching, I've seen both movies many times, and I think they are the best movies released in, 2007 at the very least.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna say that There Will Be Blood is slightly better. It's slightly towards my taste, but not say that this movie is bad. You're basically comparing your two favorite children, and my favorite child just so happens to be There Will Be Blood. But that's besides the point. We're talking about this movie because right now, this month is Cormac McCarthy month, this movie, there has seldom attempt to adapt Cormac McCarthy to film.
Yes, sorry. You cut off for a second there, but also, in case you didn't know, there will No Country for Old Men is based off of a Cormac McCarthy novel. I feel like the movie its fame has outlived the novel. So, some people might just not know that it was originally a Cormac McCarthy novel.
But this Cormac McCarthy novel was also originated as a screenplay that got turned into a novel, then got turned into a screenplay, then got turned into a movie, that got turned into a podcast.
Whoa! We're gonna reenact starting now.
Yeah. Well, do you want to discuss the plot? Because you can summarize it. I feel like it's a very, very simple plot.
Sure. It opens. We have our hitman getting arrested, and this is our introduction to him, Anton.
A monologue going on. Can't forget Anton Bell.
There's a monologue in the background. And then we're introduced to our another one of our probably trio of main characters.
Mm-hmm.
I forget how to say
Llewellyn?
his name. Llewellyn?
Welsh, I think.
Yeah, Llewellyn. He's kind of like I don't know what he does, but he's hunting pronghorns when we first see him, and he lives in a trailer park with his wife. Yeah.
He's from Texas, so I think he would know.
But he comes across the aftermath of a drug deal that ended poorly, suffice to say, and he tracks down the lone survivor, who turns out he didn't survive because he was also shot, and so he died. He runs. He's trying to get away with the money. He dies under a tree, and so Llewellyn takes the money from the now dead guy. And that's kind of the inciting incident, that Llewellyn has found this money that Anton Chigur is hired to recover. He comes by Moss's home after Llewellyn Moss, after Llewellyn has already left. He's gotten out of there. He sent his wife to go to her mom's, um, and Anton shows up to try and figure out where the money is, but Llewellyn's gone. And then does it happen immediately after?
Ed Tom
Uh,
Bell.
Sheriff Ed Tom Bell shows up to the same exact place, and it's like, oh, are they gonna have like a showdown? No, Anton's gone already by that time, um, and so Anton is following a tracking device. He finds Llewellyn, or he almost finds him at a motel, and then, but he instead finds a group of Mexicans who are also looking for the money. Um, and then Llewellyn goes to a second hotel, where he is caught by Anton. They have a bit of a firefight. I believe they both get shot. I remember Anton definitely
Yeah,
does.
yeah. They both get pretty injured, and
Yeah.
yeah. And I think this is when Llewellyn tries to go across the border.
Yes.
Or yeah.
Well, he very easily gets across the border, the
Yeah.
one way, and then he gets across the border. He basically collapses. He's taken to a hospital where he's found by Woody Harrelson's character, whose name I cannot remember.
He's
Carson
in like
Wells.
yeah, he's in for 2 scenes.
I have the cast list pulled up. Carson Wells. Two good scenes though. I must admit, I did like Woody Harrelson in this movie. But Woody Harrelson is like, I'll protect you. Just tell me where the money is, and we'll get it hashed out. We'll make a deal. This guy is not going to make a deal with you. He's going to track you down. So he's like, I'll let you think on it, because first Llewellyn is like, no. Here's my card. Carson goes back to his hotel, and there is Anton. And Anton is, he's gonna kill him. I think he asks him where the money is or something. Like there's a few things they go over together. But he ends up killing Carson, and I think right before he kills him, Llewellyn calls, trying to make a deal. Anton picks up, and he's basically like, "Here's the deal. Come give me the money, or I'm going to kill your wife. I know where she is." So Llewellyn he's like, "No, not going to happen." He tries to get his wife out of there. He tries to like basically move across the country with her, but she has to bring her mom, and her mom like spills the beans to some Mexican.
Yeah, it tells her where the location is.
Right, where they're gonna meet before they fly out. And then the Mexicans show up. And they kill Llewellyn before his wife gets there. Ed Tom Bell arrives after Llewellyn has been killed, but before his wife gets there. He's right there in the middle. After that, like Ed Tom Bell has like a close call with Anton. Anton doesn't get the money, right? He's not. The Mexicans got it, right?
Yeah,
the Mexicans
but they threw it over
they...
the fence. So I think it's kind. I know that Anton didn't get it, so probably the Mexicans. The Mexicans are not the focus in this,
right? Yeah. But yeah. So Anton has Anton and Ed Tom Bell have kind of a close call in one of the motel rooms, because
you think something's gonna
Tom
happen.
Bell is like looking around. Yeah, you think something's gonna happen, and then it doesn't. It's kind of
anticlimax.
Yeah, and it's also like, I don't know. It gave me kind of the same feeling as like the scene where Anton is looking for Moss in the other motel. But nonetheless, Anton and Ed Tom Bell kind of both leave separately unharmed. Anton goes and finds Llewellyn's wife, I think a
Carla
few
mom.
years later, or like a year later or something.
I think almost
It was
immediately.
later. I thought
Something like that.
some time passed because she was in like a new house or something,
That is a
right?
good. I never noticed that. That is a good. That
Yeah.
is a good detail. I've never picked up on that. I read the book.
It. Hold on, I'm looking at. It says weeks later.
Yeah. Okay.
Um,
That the funeral.
because her mom, yeah, her mom
Yeah.
dies, so you know some time has passed. But anyways, so there's a whole thing where he's basically like, I promised your husband. She's like, you don't have to do this, and he's like, yeah, everybody says that. Um, and so it's not outright said, but you assume that he kills her.
He
He
checks
checks
his
his
boots.
feet as is
Yeah.
leaving. Yeah. Um, and he gets in a car crash, gives a kid some money for his like shirt to make a sling for his arm, and then says like the
I'm
kid's
out
not
of
going
here.
to take it, and he's like, the money's for telling them that you never saw anybody. I was already gone. And he leaves, and that's the last we see of Anton. And then we see Tom Bell, now retired, sharing some dreams about his father with his wife, where he loses money his dad gave him, and
That's that dream,
um,
and then the second dream
the second
is
dream,
like is basically him following his father in the darkness
yeah, it's a little bit
while he
more
was carrying a
surreal.
fire. Yeah,
Yeah,
and then it ends.
yeah, and then that's the end of
Um,
the movie. I remember literally being like, "That's it. That's the that's the end." Like,
yeah, it's very much an anticlimax, and that's done intentionally. Obviously, it is a very faithful adaptation. I watched the movie first, then read the book, and then I watched the movie again. And aside from a few changes, it is very adherent to the the book. I the one thing I'm very thankful for that the movie does is that it kind of truncates the epilogue, because that epilogue went on forever. Just you're spending a lot of time with that Tom Bell, a lot more time with them, and it just wasn't necessary. So this is one of those few cases which everybody agrees, or not everybody, but most people agree. A significant amount of people agree that the movie is better. It adds a lot of stuff, which I think actually not adds a lot of stuff, but it adds some stuff that I think works really well, and it kind of adds some ambiguity. Um, yeah, and the reason why Cormac McCarthy has not been adapted um, is because I don't know. One, it's very violent. Pierce is reading Blood Meridian, and there's no way that it's gonna be adapted into a movie.
no,
No one's
no.
gonna be greenlighting that.
Well, maybe not. I think it could possibly happen now. A few years ago, probably not. But I feel like things are changing in the way that audiences look at things, and
Streaming,
they might
right?
just make some changes to make it like a little less like maybe you don't see it, but it does happen, and that makes
Mhm.
you uncomfortable. But like there are ways around it. I think it could happen, but I know they were gonna make a movie about it, and it fell through because of the violence aspect. So
Violence. And here, I don't know if he wrote that with it being made into a movie in mind, but the violence here is kind of restrained. But I mean, it's still a violent movie, but it's
it
used
it's
tastefully.
restrained. Yeah, it's restrained in what we know about Cormac McCarthy's writing.
Yes,
Like
compared to everything else.
in those terms, yeah.
Yeah. Um, and what they replace for that very short prose is they here in this movie they translate it into very stark imagery of Texas and just very a lot of silence. I don't. There's not much of a score. I actually did pay attention to if there was a score or not in this movie. This time around watching it, and there were a few times, one at the beginning, and I think one time at the gas station, and that's about it. Which I think works really well. It adds a little bit of tension, but doesn't get in the way. The best part about this movie is the sound design, especially because there is a lot of silence, and it makes that tension and suspense really high. I was very nervous watching this movie the first time. And the performances, I think that Pierce has a very interesting view on what the best performance is. But I think that the star stealing performance is this is Anton Chigur. Javier Bardem as
Yeah.
Anton Chigur absolutely nails it. He's like an alien. Doesn't really understand. Well, he does understand, but apparently this is the most accurate portrayal of a sociopath in all of film. So
Yeah,
there
it's
we
like an
go.
understanding of humans from the outside rather than like an understanding of what it
Empathy.
is
Yeah.
to be human. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um yeah, I don't think I ever outright said that I liked Tommy Lee Jones as Ed Tom Bell as like the 100% best performance, but I don't know. I liked Ed Tom Bell enough to say that Anton Chigurh isn't necessarily like show stealing. That's what I said. Um,
Yeah.
but Anton Chigurh probably is still the best performance.
Yeah. He steals the show.
Um,
Um,
I okay, all right. Um, yeah. No, the performances all around in this movie. The fact that like some people can have an opinion that like he stole the show is it's I feel like it does. That's fine if people have that opinion. He was
yeah.
very, very good. I still think he was the best one, but like the performances all around in this movie were excellent, and I feel like that kind of
Yeah.
downplays that a bit. Um,
Yeah.
like almost everyone in the movie was very, very good.
Yes. And also, we got to give credit to the writing because it is a Cormac McCarthy thing. I like
Mhm.
how it is very unconventionally structured. It plays with the conventions of the genre, especially in the third act, where it kind of trolls you a bit and promises you a lot of stuff going on, and a lot of it happens off screen in a very anticlimactic way. And in a way, you would be kind of pissed off that kind of did that. And that's up for debate if it was the right move, but it is very thematically poignant that it actually happens that way. It talks about evil, and I think we'll get into the discussion of that because this movie, the reason I really, really do love this movie is the fact that one, the supertext and subtext are kind of combined in a way where one doesn't supersede the other, and you can tell that something kind of unnatural is happening. Like there's kind of an intervening hand, with the car crash happening, and each death kind of means something. It adds to it, and it's not really superfluous, and that you can talk about the symbols and and all that, but it never gets in the way of the suspense, which I really do respect. I commend them for. So let's go talk about that, of all that stuff. Um, yeah. So there was these three scenes. I think I brought this up about milk and TV, and how the fact that this
Uh-huh.
scene is very deliberate. How it repeats three times, how it repeats thrice over. Of first Llewellyn watching TV with his wife with his beer in hand, watching a movie called Flight to Tangier. I have to look this up. No one's ever seen this movie. On IMDb, it has like 500 reviews, so it's safe to say no one knows what this movie really has, if there's really thematic relevance besides it being about a MacGuffin. Um, he's just drinking a beer and he's very happy and content with his wife. Um, then when Anton visits trying to find Moss, he fails to find Llewellyn, and gets a milk from the fridge, and he just stares
A
at the
milk.
TV. A
Mhm.
milk, a bottle of milk, and just stares at the TV, just not even drinking it. And then when Ed does the same thing, he just misses Anton Sugar, and then finds the milk that Anton did not even drink, and it's still fresh, still sweating, and then he just grabs it, pours himself a glass, stares into the TV, blank, nothing, and that means something.
Yeah, I mean I looked up the significance of milk, and apparently it's like a very it's thematic of for like sociopaths like milk in movies apparently. Um but I don't think they're trying to say that the sheriff is a sociopath. I think that
No,
they probably are obviously saying like Anton is a sociopath because he is, but I think that they're
yeah, you don't
then
say.
in there yeah. I think that it mostly serves a purpose as inviting us to compare those two characters
Yeah,
and see how they are different
yeah.
from Llewellyn more than
Ed
more
is
than
like the
the
opposite of
milk
Anton.
itself, right? More than milk itself saying anything about the sheriff Ed Tom.
Yeah. There's this
Um,
one theory floating around about this movie where Anton is all of a figment of imagination of Ed, which I absolutely hate this theory because I really hate it being all a dream. It's just like I
yeah,
really don't like that theory.
because he has like real effects on
The plot.
people's lives. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
it's not like I mean I guess you could say like oh he you know it was a Mexican all along or like several a group of Mexicans that were attacking Llewellyn but like I don't
That's
know
lame,
it just
bro.
kind
Come
of
on.
it is kind of lame yeah um yeah I would say like the comparison is mostly to kind of we're supposed to compare these the Anton and Ed Tom to be like you know it's
Yeah.
called No Country for Old Men to kind of it's kind of we're supposed to compare
And
them as two different kinds of people who the world is like leaving behind in some
yes.
way.
I did write down a theory about this,
All right.
and this is all
Okay.
me. I haven't
Uh-huh.
looked up. So Lowen is the most comforted one in his worldview. He has TV and he has a wife, and he's drinking a beer that kind of kind of comforts him. It's I wouldn't say I use the word blind here. Pretty sure that's not the right word, but like kind of subdues him from thinking about the world. And he's watching a movie. He's hunting animals. He can distract himself with a beer and a movie. While
Mhm.
when he when Anton when he visits him, he he drinks milk instead of beer. Um, I think that's mostly to draw attention to like
He
it
also
either being a
seeks
comfort.
out the milk, right?
Yes,
He
yeah,
like goes to the fridge and purposefully grabs the milk, whereas Ed Tom the
yes,
milk is sitting right in front of him.
yes. I think them staring to a blank TV is significant because they're seeing the world. They have the same worldview where the world is evil and or has like no meaning and whatever, and they both come to the same conclusion about it being just like a meaningless void where they can't really distract themselves. So looking at life as it really is, or looking at a mirror to themselves and saying, "Hey, man," or not. I don't know. Anton probably isn't doing that, but they see reality for what it is. My theory. And I don't know what
I
the milk
see, I
stands for.
see.
Like something. I don't know. Milk is. I think it's more akin to water, where they don't really. Um, it's kind of comforting. It's just a drink they have. I don't
I
know.
think I think I think the sociopathy significance might it might be more significant to Ed Tom than I had thought at first. I'm just coming up with this right now. Because like if you think about it, the thing that I said, there's gotta be some importance also to the fact that Anton he was seeking out the milk, right? He
Mhm,
went to the fridge, he grabbed a bottle of milk, he decided I'm going to have some milk.
yeah.
Whereas Ed Tom, he came and he sat down, it was right there, and he said, I'll have
Mm,
some milk. Why not? Um, and I think that that might be significant in
um,
some way to show that Anton is a sociopath and he's like all in on
mhm,
sociopathy and he's already a crazy person. And maybe like in Ed Tom's old age, he's like losing his mind, he's losing his way. That's like how,
mhm,
you know, the world is leaving him behind because he's kind of losing his own way, you know, as he gets older.
mhm.
Um I think I just came up with that and don't know if that's true, but I think
Someone
that
yeah,
the
you can't
milk
fact
might
check us.
have can't fact check us, it's all opinion. I think the milk might have some significance in that way. The fact that milk
Yeah,
is usually some kind of a stand-in for
yeah.
showing sociopathy.
And I think Anton's drinking it for pleasure. Ed is drinking it for comfort. That something,
Mm,
something. That's something. We should
hmm
probably move on. But hey, that's something that happens. um, yeah,
I think another thing we need to talk about at least quickly is the coin. I
coin
think
toss.
the coin
Sir,
toss is
sir.
probably
Well,
the most obvious and important like motif in the movie.
yes,
The most obviously important, I should say.
yeah.
Um,
So if you need somehow reminding, Anton Chigur, he travels with the coin, and he flips it before he decides to kill a victim that he deems worthy of. So basically, I did look this up. People sociopaths will try to dehumanize a victim, and they will try to justify it with a coin, or not really a coin, like with some like characteristic. Here, Anton uses a coin to justify murdering him or murdering people,
Mhm.
or yeah. So yeah, um, that's something, and it is introduced in probably the most intense, or not even the most subtly intense scene at the gas station. It happened a lot earlier than I thought it did. It happens after two murders happen, and Anton murders two people in a very brutal fashion, and gas station, and he just subtly toys with this victim at the gas station. Just he abhors small talk, and then he just starts to toy with him, saying, "Hey, call this coin toss." Um, and yeah, um, you have what do you think the coin kind of represents, and do you think that Carla Moss is right and everything?
So what I think is that it's obviously supposed to represent some kind of like a fate, right? Like
Mhm.
it's what that is what Anton is taking it for. Like
Mhm.
if they call the coin toss and they call it wrong,
He's
then
an
it is
agent of fate.
fate. He is an agent of fate, and it is fate that I should murder them right now. That's what his thinking
Mhm.
is. Um, However, Carla Jean, towards the end of the movie, she says, she basically tells him, "You can't take yourself out of the equation. You are choosing to flip the coin,
Yes,
and
and
therefore."
actually, there was
Mhm,
a very important thing that happened in the book and in the movie. It's one of the best
mhm,
changes that I think happens the in the movie. In the book, Anton flips the coin, and then Carla gives the speech about like how you, Anton, are doing all this. Here in the movie, she does it before the coin is flipped. Or not even you don't even see the coin being flipped, which I think is a very nice change. It gives her more power rather than showing her as a pleading victim. Um, Good change on you, Coen Brothers. Anyways,
yeah, but she tells him that, and I mean, I don't even think it's like a question. Like she is just correct. Like he's choosing
yes,
to flip that coin, and I think it's also supposed to be call to a greater theme of like life that um
there's no rhyme or reason.
fate
It's
I well, yeah, I think it also like the question is it, are they saying that there's no rhyme or reason, or are they saying that fate has no broader power over us, that like if you are the agent who has the power, right, it's not
Mhm.
because of some fated thing. This wasn't some fated thing that was supposed to happen, I think, is the first point. That's, and then
Mhm.
you can expand out from there.
Yeah, I think something very okay, well. We need to mention something very important happens afterwards after the
Hmm.
coin toss with Carla. It's the car crash, which in any other movie that would have been just like what, that's very anticlimactic. But here, there's thematic said, and yeah, it's
Relevance, yep.
definitely a very yeah. So is the story kind of agreeing with Carla? I'd say so. It's definitely something along those lines. Um, and it was probably fate that that he got hit by a car crash right after something like that happened, or someone finally stood up to him, and he disobeyed his own laws, or I guess did he disobey his own laws by killing her?
Well, we don't know, because we don't know if he flipped the coin, and we don't know what the coin face was. So we don't know that for a fact, but you could
Yeah,
theorize.
actually, yeah, no. Carla refuses. So by doing that, and I guess we're going to say God punishes Anton for defying her, or like killing her, and yeah, like that's God's way of punishing
Hmm.
Anton for defying his own rules and trying to defy fate, or trying to justify
Hmm.
it. So, um, yeah, it's basically just a commentary on how Anton is basically his entire philosophy is kind of just it doesn't make sense, or it doesn't make
Yeah.
sense. It's just an excuse.
Right. It doesn't make sense to, and I think you can call that into, even though this is about a sociopath, I think you can call that into like life in general. Like just thinking that things are fated to happen is not any way to live life. It doesn't make sense as a function of like the choices that you make to live. Um, and I think that's like the broader universal thematic point that's probably being made.
Yes. Um, and yeah, um, Anton has a set of rules, and I don't. People say that fiction of like fate or tries to act like it. I think he is trying to act like it, rather than is like treated within the story as the personification of fate and death and whatever. But he does have a code, which I don't like. I mean,
It's
do
never
you know?
spelled out.
But you can try to imply it from the deaths that happen. Um, one and each kill has a purpose. I don't think he. Well, he does kind of kill, and he doesn't kill indiscriminately. I guess each kill kind of does have a purpose, and it's usually in self-defense or if he needs something. He kills the police guy to escape and grab his car, and then he kills the guy to grab his car. He kills two of the employer's men when they're at the drug site, the drug scene again. He kills the Mexican criminals who are at the motel. He kills a bird, which didn't do anything. But I think now that I'm actually reading this out, I think it's because birds fly away. I mean, I'm guessing that's why he just did it out of no reason whatsoever. He went out of his way to kill that bird.
Right.
Um, he kills a hotel clerk, but spares the cat. And the cat is just licking milk. So I'm assuming it's because the cat stood his ground. Didn't kill it. There's a random bystander who was supposed to drive Llewellyn out. He kills Wells, Wells, the chicken guy, yeah, and he kills Carla Jean, and I think he also he kills Fuchs. Or sorry, Stephen Root's character that doesn't have a name. That in the federal building, and he noticeably lets two people live. The big lady not giving up information, and the gas station attendant, but he might have killed him, and the accountant. Um, for I don't know why he lets him live. I think it's because one, it was very superfluous to kill him, and he kind of stood his ground. He didn't like plead for his life. He wasn't trying to fight back. But honestly, there is some credence to him dying because like if he dies, there's like he could spill the beans towards someone. So there's that. So yeah, he basically just kills a lot of evil. And there's always a purpose to it. One, I think, is that one, he hates small talk. He kills the chicken guy because he needs his car, but he also is very upset with him making small talk, saying which way he's going. And he was a nice guy. I don't know why he had to die like that. And he nearly kills the gas station guy because he made small talk with him, and it's very threatening for him to do that. And he doesn't kill the big lady. I called them the big lady in my notes, or the accountant, or whatever she is. Because I don't think the toilet flushing and scaring him off was enough to deter him. I think he just respects her for not giving up the information. So that abides by his code. So I don't know. What do you make sense of all these deaths that he does?
Yeah, I mean, I think he just doesn't like the way that people typically react to
Mm-hmm.
being threatened. He wants people to be like tougher than they are, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, and I mean, it especially comes out in the ending when he's like speaking to Carla Jean,
Carla.
and
Yeah.
and she goes like, "Oh, you don't have to do this," and he goes, "Oh, everyone says that."
Yeah. Carla's the exception to the rule, and for killing her, even though she stood up to him, he gets punished for it. So
Yeah.
there's that.
Because she
And
because she does the thing that everyone does, and then she proceeds to do the thing that not everyone does, which is stand
yeah,
up to him.
yeah,
Which I think that is also interesting that she's kind
yes,
of done both in one scene.
yeah. And again, refusing to call the coin and all that. And here,
Mhm.
I liked how he progresses in a way. Like, he's a very static character all the way throughout, up until the end. Here at the beginning, he's basically the Terminator. He basically is just someone that is basically almost impossibly good. Like, he somehow sneaks into a federally protected building and kills Stephen Root, who I like to call Fuchs, because if you guys aren't watching Barry, you should, with a weapon somehow. Um, like, we don't know how that happens. Oh, and he also there was also one other thing that he said. He goes up to Stephen Root's character. He doesn't have a name, and says to him that there's no 13th floor. You're skipping that, or something like that, because he took an elevator there. And also, I think that's him, just like basically sneering the fact that he's trying to avoid fate, because 13 is an unlucky number, and most buildings, I think all buildings, don't have a 13th floor because that's bad luck in this country.
Mhm.
So that's something. He just he hates it when people try to avoid fate. Um, what was I saying? Yeah, so he starts off at the beginning, basically unstoppable, and at the end he ends up just basically almost kind of pathetic, trying to give money for a kid's T-shirt and just runs away. So basically, I think that's, like, kind of a symbol that the new evil, sometimes evil fades away and a new evil will take over, whatever new evil that is in this century. Who knows? Or this decade.
Um, what do you make of the ending with Ed Tom Bell? Because
At
there's
Tom.
like the sheriff, Ed Tom Bell.
Yes.
Um, because there's the scene with his, what is it? It was like his,
His wife.
no. There was the scene slightly earlier than that where he goes to
Oh,
um
when he goes to the motel and then he's about to have a show off with Ed.
no,
Oh, maybe I
slightly
missed.
earlier than that, his uncle. That's what it is.
Oh,
His uncle in the
I think that
wheelchair.
one's pretty clear cut about how evil still pervades, and it
Mhm. It
basically is just
just
talking about how evil has always existed in this country, and to think that
mhm.
evil is new, and just because of you, that's vanity,
Right.
essentially. Yes.
Um, and then what do you think of the ending with him? Because I just remember it's very surreal. I mean, anything dealing with dreams can be very surreal and
So,
confusing a bit.
yeah.
Um,
Also, do like to
because
mention.
I mhm.
Okay, so there's um one of the scenes that I kind of don't really like in the movie, and is the fact that Ed Tom Bell is about to approach Anton Chigur, and he's in the motel room waiting for him. Um, and once he opens the door, he's not there, and we don't know why. Who knows? I like it's impossible for him to leave, and the first watch is just like kind of a relief. Ed survives, and the fact that that he's here and somehow just not attacking him kind of rubs me the wrong way. One, because it gives credence to that really stupid theory about it being just a figment of his imagination. Um, but I the way that I kind of justified in his head is that Anton actually really respects him for standing up to him. He didn't need to go in that motel. He leaves him alone because he does stand up to him, and it wasn't out of self-preservation. Maybe he takes pity on him. Who knows? Uh, it's just that's something to take note of. And we do. I think there's an insert shot of a coin that's flipped onto its head. I don't know if that was to get rid of money that was in the vents, but maybe he flipped a coin there. Who knows? Yeah. Um,
But yes, but what do you think of the ending? Because I wasn't sure exactly what to make of it.
okay. So
Yeah,
this is the
I'm
ending.
I'm sure I'm sure there's been plenty of discussion about what
Yeah,
the ending
it's
means because
very open.
anything with dreams can get very like very
Yeah,
open ended.
yeah, we're going all over the place because we didn't even talk about Llewellyn at all. Um, But okay, so the context around this ending is the fact that Ed Tom Bell finally just retires because he cannot be on the force, and he cannot understand this world because it's so evil. Um, it mirrors the opening and the ending because he gives both the opening monologue and the ending monologue. And at the ending monologue, he describes two dreams. One, his father gives him money, which he loses, and then just forgets the dream. It's basically saying that this entire thing with Llewellyn and Anton is basically, forget. It's not exactly forgettable. It just happens over and over again. It's nothing new in the world. But the second dream is something that takes significance. He dreams about death, or really life after death, and it's basically just him in the dark. And he's following his father, who's carrying fire in a world of darkness. And basically, he just tries to find him, and he wakes up. And it's kind of ambiguous as to what that really means. I think when he says, "Then I woke up," it's just this fleeting belief that no longer really exists in his mind. It's just basically he will keep trying to follow that light, but he won't be able to ever get it because he'll always wake up or always remember the fact that reality is setting in.
Right, and there is it like kind of like a fleeting belief in an afterlife, almost like he's like this. I mean, if you want to take it back to the meaninglessness, belief in an afterlife typically means belief in some kind of a religion, and that often operates as a framework for meaning for a lot of people. And so fleeting belief in an afterlife would be indicative of the fleeting meaning, the fleeting belief in any meaning in life that Ed Tom Bell clearly is dealing with throughout the film and throughout the end of his life.
I think that kind of also, I know that people like to say that Cormac McCarthy is very pessimistic, but I don't think that's the case at all. He writes all about these dark stories and these dark worlds, but there's always something positive.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I was just I think Cormac McCarthy is people say this all the time. I think he is literally a realist. Like, he's not a pessimist. He's not optimistic. He's realistic about the fact that there is hopelessness a lot of the time in the world, but that there is some hope that still exists.
And that is what that fire symbolizes in the dream. It's a dark and dreary world, but his father, I'm assuming, is just a paragon to him, is carrying this fire that always gives him hope. And the reason why this is very significant, because there is a phrase that repeats in The Road, the novel. His father always tells his son to keep on carrying fire.
Justin was reading the novel for this month, or the Road for this month, if you were wondering.
Yes, and father is always, and I think the Road was written after No Country for Old Men, so the father is always telling his son, keep on carrying the fire, keep on carrying fire, and the son is always telling him to act nice in this world of darkness and act moral. So I'm thinking that's what that somehow relates. Maybe they're setting up for a sequel. Maybe No Country for Old Men is a prequel to The Road.
Yeah, maybe. Hold on. Maybe Ed Tom Bell's father is the child from The Road.
Yes,
and this is after society has been reestablished.
Yeah, The Road takes place in Russia, and then he flew to America, and he grew up here.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, because Russia, man, not a place you want to be in, or Ohio. He flew from Ohio to Texas.
Yep.
I think the way that the Coen brothers direct the scene is also very interesting. One, in the background, there's a dead tree and a tree full of life. So basically, I think that means that death and life will always coexist. No shot at the Coen brothers is accidental. This is why I'm going super deep on this. So I'm guessing that's always in the back of his mind, and it's always behind him, and it will always be present with him. This turmoil between life and death. And I like how the clock is ticking, symbolizing that his time is essentially up, or it's going to keep on going. And it is all about bringing life, hope into a world that is unforgiving. So I don't know if he's going to be sitting back and retiring completely. It's, again, left to the imagination if he's going to be doing that. Maybe it is the sequel we're always talking about. So, yeah. That is my opinion on the ending. It's a very bittersweet ending rather than a downer ending.
Yeah.
We did not talk about Llewellyn.
Well, I mean, I kind of just everything you said earlier about Llewellyn, where you were kind of like, yeah, he just kind of his worldview is not like marred by meaninglessness yet. He's kind of I feel like the money is kind of like the beer for him, where he kind of views
Hmm.
it as this thing that will allow him to just keep like trugging along,
Hmm.
basically like block out the meaninglessness. Um, uh, like it's not. He's probably the most clear cut character to me out of the
Yeah.
three.
I mean, he still is
Um,
kind of selfish. Like, I mean,
yes,
yeah, because he
absolutely.
kind of gets people in danger, gets someone
Mhm.
killed. Um,
He
I think
he
he's
almost gets his wife, and well, he does get
well,
his
he
wife killed
does
in the end. Yeah.
indirectly his mother-in-law as well,
Well, his
indirectly anyway.
mother-in-law, I thought, died of something else, but
Well, there was one scene where she was essentially just telling a Mexican man who was helping her with the luggage, just telling him
yeah,
all this information. So I'm assuming
right.
that had something to do with it. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, essentially getting people, and his one act of altruism is essentially just getting him in trouble, going back for water. He knows it's stupid, but he does it anyways. But I think what is very interesting to note is like how he always tries to do the right thing, or kind of in a way. Um, he what he doesn't warn the hotel clerk, which is kind of unfortunate because the hotel clerk dies. But I don't know, but he's very loyal to his wife. That very baseline because
He's a person who's trying to be moral,
yes,
uh,
he's
not
the in
always
between
succeeding.
of Ed and Anton in a way. And I think this is it's a commentary on the genre itself, because this is like kind of like a neo western. It takes place in the West or really the South, and
The West,
there's
what would have been the West
yes,
in Western times? Yeah,
yes, but taking place in modern-ish times, the 80s, sure.
yeah.
And it's talking about our kind of our current times. Um, and essentially he's transporting this western hero who is basically just very well resourceful, um and intelligent and all that, but he just kind of gets people killed alongside. So I think it's kind of a deconstruction of that archetype. um Also,
And Cormac McCarthy loves his deconstruction of westerns. He,
yes. And yeah, like also especially with Ed Tom Bell, you this movie keeps on setting up the fact, well, not really setting up the fact, kind of teases out the fact that Ed Tom Bell is gonna have this confrontation with Anton, and just he doesn't. Like
yeah,
he hides behind the sarcasm a lot. He's kind of a coward, really. He Every time that something is gonna happen, he was like, "Hey, I'm gonna hide right behind you." He is kind of
he
the
sends
heart.
his
He does
deputy
comfort,
in
yeah,
first.
first
Yeah.
without a gun. Oh, but he doesn't have a gun. His deputy
Mhm.
does have a gun, but Ed doesn't. Um, and he always uses humor to really shield behind the really cynical world that he's in. Um, yeah, but he does comfort Carla a couple times,
Yeah.
and I think even more so in the book, because one time in the book, this took me off guard. Carla was just like very. He takes off his hat the first time, and Carla immediately just assumes the worst. This was at the first scene between them, and he just immediately she starts immediately freaking out. And he starts calming him, so he does have this calming effect. The second time though is just obviously
Mhm.
Llewellyn dies off screen. And do you have anything to say to that?
I did. I lost it after.
I I just called. Oopsies.
um, but oh gosh, what was it? Oh, I was just I. You mentioned his like calming effect and the way he interacts with Carla, and I was thinking about how the scene in the movie where he's like talking to her and he tells her the story about the was it the is a bull breeder or a horse breeder or something like that,
Animal breeder.
animal breeder, or somebody who was breeding some kind of animal, and then he's like, oh, call me if you hear anything, and if you want, if you're ready to like tell me what's going on.
Hmm.
And she does call him, and um and he's just like, and she's like, oh, was the story, you remember that story you told me about that guy? And he's like, what guy, who is that? Like, because he made the story up.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. I did not know
because
that.
he made the story up to like comfort her and also get her to tell him what's going on.
That's
Which I thought was
interesting.
really interesting. It stood out to me.
Yeah. I think Ed's kind of the protagonist of the story in a way. Like he's the one that really changes the most. And has his worldview kind of shattered. Otherwise, without Ed Tom Bell, this movie would just be a generic, well, not really well made, but forgettable movie about just like evil in the world.
Yeah.
Also, I do not know.
I wouldn't call it forgettable, but it
He's
definitely
not
would
forgettable.
not be
It would not have made the impact
as yeah.
remembered.
It would not be on like so many top 100 films lists. It would just be like, oh, this really good movie came out in 2007.
He's what really holds the film together. So
yeah.
Also, I did not know how to stitch this in, but Carson Wells, played by Woody Harrelson, he's hired to kill Chigur, and he's kind of a hitman with the heart, and he's really the audience's only link to Chigur. Fun fact about Woody Harrelson: this has no relation to Woody Harrelson now, but his father. The book has a line referring to the murder of a federal judge of John H. Wood Jr. in San Antonio. The convicted murderer is Charles Harrelson, which is Woody Harrelson's father. So his father was actually a real life hitman. So
wow.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he's met a hitman before. He knows maybe what they're like. I guess.
Yeah. I don't know. I just thought that was a very interesting fact about the movie. There's several articles, but this is kind of a well-known fact about him. About Woody Harrelson, if you've kind of done your research, because that blew my mind when I was looking that up. And I don't know if the about got track, but I think this movie as a whole is just a deconstruction of the thriller genre. It eschews just regular structure, because the third act is kind of a troll. Our quote unquote protagonist is killed off screen, and it wasn't even by guys that weren't even the focus. Anton never confronts Ed Tom Bell. Carla's killed immediately after the mom's funeral. And Ed just gives up and retires, and Anton is just kind of dispatched, thematically killed, spiritually in a way, not physically killed, but he probably won't be as evil as he was again, because it's probably a very debilitating car accident.
Yeah, well, he'll probably continue to be an evil person. He just probably won't act on it as much. Yeah, He won't be an evil force in the world like he has been.
Yeah. Do you think that he would have killed the kids if he, after the car accident, and because he needed that shirt or something, or like a sling? Do you think it would have, or something like that?
That's actually an interesting point. Because I mean, he didn't. Was there ever a point in the movie where he even thought about killing a kid?
There were no kids in the movie at all.
Really. Yeah, outside of that ending, huh?
Yeah,
because I don't really know. Because I mean, it is entirely possible that that's against his code, which is not something that we're told. But it's also possible, like you said, where it's a situation where he's maybe hold on, maybe he feels like maybe it adds more to the thing you were saying about that car. Maybe he feels the way that you've said about that car accident being punishment.
Yeah.
For not following his code, the way that he's kind of giving it up in a way immediately following the car accident.
Mini redemption arc.
Not redeemed, just hanging up the shotgun a little bit.
Yeah, well, you got.
He's retiring also.
Yeah.
Whoa! Yeah. Another mirror. He's retiring as well. If that is, true.
Yeah.
Then those two are already thematically linked from the milk. We already linked them.
Way too long. I think we're the only podcast that's ever talked about
that. but that link adds to this link. You know what I mean? Of them both retiring at the end of the movie.
Yeah. Um, one more question is: do you think he killed the accountant after he killed Stephen Root?
Oh, I don't think so. But I'm not sure.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
is
it's very
it
ambiguous.
cuts. Yeah, it's ambiguous. I don't think so. I think at that point, like,
Mm,
well, I don't know because in a way, right? Didn't he say like no to well, do you see me, or does it cut before that?
he says it once and then he says it again or something like that, and then it cuts. It cuts before the answer. But I think what's
I see.
noticeable is that he doesn't really, counter doesn't try to plead for his life. He's just like, "You're not gonna kill me, right? You're not gonna kill me." Um,
That's true. So that's
yeah.
true. But yeah, I guess it depends on if he views the answer to that sentence as a plead for life. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Because if you say like no, no, of course I don't see you, then it's like, oh well, you're just saying that so that you
Yeah.
live. Um, and so that's probably why it cuts there, just so that that's
Yeah.
left completely ambiguous
Ambiguous. And yeah.
to even what the answer is, let alone the implications of what that answer might be.
Hmm. Um, yeah, that's all my notes. I do want to introduce a segment about me finding a disparaging review of this movie, because those exist. Sometimes masterpieces like this movie have some haters. Um, so this one was by Anthony Lane of The New Yorker. He didn't. They don't give scores to movies, but I'll read you this little excerpt of it. Quote: Well, as a No Country for Old Men is tight, pointed, and immune to the temptations of speed. I found myself in the same predicament with the film as with the book, approaching both in a state of rare excitement, yet willing myself all too soon to become more engaged than I actually was. If I want wry lawmen and smart calculating fugitives, I'll get them from Elmore Leonard. And if I want Leonard, I'll take him neat rather than slow filtered, drop by drop, through a layer of Faulkner, then laced with the book of Jeremiah. This is how the novel sounded to me. At any rate, and McCarthy's bent for the apocalyptic, most naked in The Road, a greater work by far, suffers a curious transformation in the hands of the Coens. It shrinks into a fatalistic fetishism. Screws turned by knives, a cold bottle of milk sweating from the fridge, dust tracks at the bottom of a ventilation shaft, and countless, slowly spreading pools of blood. Basically, just saying it's a well made thriller, but it repeats so many of the same points and becomes tiresome. Um,
I
but
I get that. However, like the subtext, points that it's repeating are like subtext. Like you don't
yes,
have to pay attention to them if you don't want to.
yeah,
Like you just enjoy the thriller. Like,
yeah,
but the points are there, which is what makes the movie so good. The fact that those points are there and that they're in subtext, and but the subtext is like clear, but it's still subtext. Like that,
yes,
I don't know. That to me is a strength of the movie. The thing that he's
yes,
describing.
yeah. And I'm pretty sure this might be our longest episode of Bookends probably ever. And what on the
I don't.
surface
Maybe not.
is it? Maybe
I
I
don't
don't
think
know.
so.
Well, it's a very long episode, anyways. Um, yeah, I mean, like we would not be talking so much about the themes if it was just another generic thriller that was repeating the same points over and over again.
Hmm.
You're free to disagree, like Anthony over there.
Hmm.
Yeah. And I've got some frustrations with the ending because I did watch this movie again, knowing the ending was coming, knowing that it would be very anticlimactic, but it doesn't really hit me. I don't know what the correct ending is, and I know that's very adherent to the book. Would I prefer another action-packed ending? I don't know, but I can dislike parts of art that I really enjoy, and still really enjoy it, like I do with this movie. So yeah, I still really do enjoy this movie. I think I'll be visiting in the future. Who knows? I would love to introduce this movie to somebody. And yeah,
I mean, you kind of introduced it to me by picking it, so because I'd never seen it before, but I had heard of it obviously, and I
and
was going
planned
to
on
watch it.
watching it. Now
Yeah.
you're planning to watch There Will Be Blood and getting to me about if, which movie's better.
Yep. Well, on that note, you can join us next week for more Cormac McCarthy fun, which we'll be discussing. Both of us have now read Blood Meridian. Well, you didn't
Most of
finish
it.
it, but
A lot of it. Yeah.
yeah, you read most of it. And one of us has read The Road, so those are the two books we'll be discussing. You can join us next week for that. And then you can find us on Twitter at NotJustAnyPod, where you find information on this podcast as well as our other one on Tabletop RPGs, Not Just Any RPG.
Rate us 5 stars.
What
and
else?
make
Yeah,
us
rate us,
happy.
give us a rating, follow us, subscribe, whatever it is on whatever platform you're listening on.
And
Is
here
there something
goes the
else?
part
I
where
feel like
Pierce says he always says that he always feels like he forgets something, and I always say those two beautiful words: "Goodbye, Prometheus."
wow, way to deconstruct our closing there.